Hello, my name is Natalie Rivera, and I'm the Director of Operations for the Upstate Continuum of Care. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to survey participants in the upcoming point-in-time count. Starting off with the basics, let's talk about when to survey and how to survey. In the 2025 PIT count, surveys can be conducted anytime between Wednesday, January 22nd and Wednesday, January 29th. However, it's important to note that whenever you're conducting a survey with the participant, you'll be asking them about where they stayed on the night of Wednesday, January 22nd, our night of reference. Because remember, we're trying to capture a snapshot of people experiencing homelessness at one point in time. But we'll talk about that more in our next video. The PIT count survey is held between a volunteer, the interviewer, and a person experiencing homelessness, the participant. The survey is conversational and is led by the interviewer, meaning you'll be verbally asking questions and writing down responses. For 2025, we have two options for the survey. First, we try to encourage all interviewers to use the electronic survey that we've designed. It's quick and it ensures that you fill out all of the required information, but we also understand that sometimes internet connection isn't possible, so we'll still have a paper version that you can print out and use. However, you'll need to submit the paper survey back to the Continuum of Care by entering the paper survey into the electronic form. When conducting the PIT count survey, the first step is to approach and introduce yourself. Whether you're surveying someone at a shelter, your own service organization, at the side of their car, or out on the street, you'll always want to start by sharing your name and asking if the person has a few minutes to respond to a survey. Be sure to share the purpose of the survey and give a short explanation of the importance of the PIT count. Then you want to kindly identify if the person is experiencing homelessness, as this survey is only for people that are experiencing what the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development defines as literal homelessness, meaning they are living in a shelter or in a place that's not fit for habitation, such as the street or in their car. As an example of this first conversation, you can say, "Hi, my name is Natalie. I'm with the Upstate Continuum of Care, and I'm conducting surveys for the point-in-time count, which collects vital information about housing in our community. Do you have a few minutes for some questions?" If they say yes, "Okay, great. This survey is for people that are experiencing homelessness. Do you have a safe place to sleep tonight?" If the person says no, you can carry on with the survey. "Would you be willing to complete this survey? It's totally optional, takes about 5 minutes, and all of your responses are confidential." If the person does have a safe place to sleep that night, "Do you know where I could talk to people around here that may be experiencing homelessness?" You can even screenshot this slide, print it out, and keep it with you if that helps you feel more prepared for surveying. I have to add that in this first step, the most important practice of all is safety. No matter when or where you're surveying, the safety of you as the interviewer and the safety of your participant are vital. Persons that are sleeping outside or in a shelter may be dealing with active addiction, mental health concerns, or significant trauma histories. Considering this, there are a couple of measures that you can take to help create a safe environment for everyone, such as always surveying in groups of 2 or more, surveying in the daylight if you can, but at least always in a public space, and by wearing some physical sign to indicate that you're with an established organization, such as a name tag or a lanyard from the Continuum of Care. Be sure not to sneak up on people, especially people that appear to be sleeping, and it's best to avoid using a flashlight. Speak in a low tone of voice that comes off as approachable. And lastly, make sure you're conscious about your participant's current condition. Since we do PIT count surveys in January, we recognize that it could be very cold while surveying. Does your participant have access to weather-appropriate clothing? Do they show any signs of hypothermia or any other dangerous conditions? If so, take the responsibility of calling 911, but only in appropriate times of need. The second step is to conduct the interview using the survey form. You'll verbally walk the participant through each question, marking their responses along the way. Remember that participants have the right to refuse any question, and if they do, you'll just mark "Participant refuses" and carry on. The participant can also stop the survey at any point. At the end of every survey, you have the opportunity to add any notes that may be helpful. For example, if you feel that there might be a discrepancy between reality and what the participant is reporting, you can give us your input. Or if a participant gave an answer that you weren't sure how to indicate on the survey, you can write that down as well. In the third step, you'll close the interview by thanking the participant for their time and reassuring them that all of this information is confidential. You can refer the participant to any resource that they may have requested during their survey, and you can also offer them any resource cards or sheets that you might have prepared. You can also offer an incentive item if you've been equipped with one as a volunteer. Some county coordinators will take donations of backpacks, first aid kits, or small gift cards for volunteers to share with the participant as an incentive item after the survey, just as a small way to say thank you for their time. Lastly, before you submit the electronic survey or move on to the next paper survey, step away for a moment and take some time to read it over. Make sure you have an answer for all of the required fields and that your answers are reflective of what the participant shared with you. One important thing to note is that every household gets their own survey. This probably doesn't come as a surprise, but remember that a household can be many different things. For the purposes of the PIT count, a household is any group of people or an individual that presents as one single unit. This could be the traditional family of parents with children. It could be a couple without any children. It could be two best friends that are experiencing homelessness and they always stay together. Or it can also be an individual. Really, there's an endless number of household combinations. But if you approach two people sitting together, don't just assume that they're one household. You can always ask, and if they state that they aren't together, you'll want to treat them as two separate households and conduct a survey with each individual person. I'll wave my flag here because this is an important note that often gets confusing for some people. Because of the way that PIT count data is reported, we have to identify households that are labeled as parenting youth. Parenting youth must be counted on their own survey with their child, even if they're a part of a larger household. And parenting youth means that the parent of the child, whether it's the mother, the father, or both, is between the ages of 18 and 24. This parent and child composition will always go on their separate survey every single time. I'd like to give an example of the situation. For example, let's say that we come across Mr. Smith. He's the head of the household and he's the person that you're currently surveying. Mr. Smith reports that he lives in his car with his 30-year-old daughter, Sarah, and Sarah's baby. In this situation, you'll treat them all as one household. That's because they're all staying together and because Sarah is not a parenting youth because of her age. But if Mr. Smith told you that they're all staying together and Sarah is 22 years old and she has a baby, then Sarah is considered to be a parenting youth. That's because she's a parent and she falls into the age range of 18 to 24. Sarah is a parenting youth and her baby will need to be surveyed on a separate form than Mr. Smith. Please pause and look through the visual if you're having a hard time with that distinction. You can always reach out to your county coordinator with any questions. Lastly, before we move on to an example of how to complete the survey, I just want to add that you should always remember that as the interviewer, you're in a position of power. Use that conversational power to help your participant feel both safe and understood. People experiencing homelessness that are participants in the survey are in a vulnerable state in life, and they may understandably be hesitant to share information with you. Use your power as an interviewer to introduce yourself properly, explain why we're conducting surveys, explain the confidentiality of the information we collect, and listen to participants as they tell their story to help provide both comfort and dignity. It's our duty as volunteers to be warm and welcoming, and to be a good reflection of your own organization and the continuum of care. Keep going in this YouTube playlist to see an example of how to complete the electronic form for the Point in Time Count survey.